Alright, welcome to the Bearded Nomad van life. Had footage, I have a future video coming up. Went to the Celtic Fling yesterday. I had to wear my kilt and enjoy some great music from Albanach. That'll all be getting put together later. But unfortunately, on the way to and from the Celtic Fling, the old girl here, my Mona Van Lisa, well, for over 9 months to a year, she has a very sporadic issue. I'd start her, and then she would stall. I'd cycle the key, start her again, and she would fire right up and run great. Or she would stall a second time and then cycle the key, and the third time she would start right up and run great. And then it wouldn't do it for weeks, months, and then it would do it again. Every once in a while. No rhyme or reason to it. But I know with all the, looking up, Googling Ford forums, asking Google for help to diagnose possible causes. I had the fuel pump driver was the first thing that came up. I replaced that. It went a while before it even did anything, that it acted up. So I thought I had fixed it, but lo and behold, I didn't, but it still does it. Now, every once since I bought the van, yesterday morning or the night before, just in the last 3 days, made like the third time that while driving along, it would go into limp mode, and like there's no gas pedal, doesn't do anything. It's a limp mode from what I understand, from what I researched, and I just put it in neutral, turn it off, fire it back up, and it ran and drove fine for a while, and it would just do it every so often. But yesterday, on the way to the Celtic Fling, it actually threw a check engine light when it went into limp mode, not just the little wrench. So being that it had a check engine light after the day of enjoying music and whatnot at the Celtic Fling, I went to AutoZone, had them put the scanner on it and see if it had any codes. Well, here's what the code, it's only one code that came up, but here's what it is. The code is a P061B, Internal Control Module Torque Calculation Performance. Now, most likely solution, powertrain system, reinstall intake air duct. No suggested parts, just reinstall air duct. Now, and I said to the guy, well, I just recently cleaned my mass airflow sensor and the intake throttle body. But I put everything is on. Everything was so far the only, and I replaced the air filter. So with everything on here, that doesn't really make sense. But I'm going to pull this all back off. I know I really don't want to take the doghouse off on the inside. I know at some point I'm probably going to have to, because other things that I wanted to replace on this, I was thinking fuel pump. Well, because every now and then I get a check engine light. If I fill my fuel tank too full, check engine light goes on, it bings, the fuel gauge goes to E, which I had that checked. It's just a high voltage short. from the fuel sending unit for the gauge, and once I use a little fuel, it's fine, and it never does it, except when if I fill it all the way full. But I thought, I would like to replace, being with a mile that has almost 170,000 miles. I would like to replace the fuel pump. I would like to replace, back in the back there's this thing. This engine does not have a fuel pressure regulator. It has a fuel pressure sensor. Now, every vehicle I've ever had up to this, I thought had a fuel pressure regulator. At least everything probably up to my brand new Ram in 2015 that I had. I'm thinking that was probably the first vehicle that may not have had a fuel pressure regulator like I'm used to on all my older cars years ago, throughout the years. So, but there's still there's parts and stuff on here that I would like to replace, just so I know for peace of mind that they're new. And, especially before the days of long cross-country travel, I would like to have this thing gone over. I've already replaced the alternator. I know it needs plugs and coil packs, but I don't know how this thing was maintained when it was a work van. So I'm not sure that I want to try to get the plugs out in case they break. I think I would rather leave that to a mechanic that probably has some little trick or some special spray it down in there, let it sit a little bit, and then be able to get the plugs out, hopefully without them breaking off. But back to the issue at hand is this. Now the check engine light's on. Now, of course, I'm thinking, and I looked up did some other research on Google here on this phone, and I actually put in this in Google, and then the thing that I found, come on, okay, so internal control modular calculation performance. All right, so the contents are, what does the code mean? What are the possible causes? Which, under possible causes, okay, now it's going to flies. Issues with the PCM, which in this thing, the PCM and the ECM are all in one computer brain, I do believe, built together. Sensor problems, throttle position, or mass airflow sensor. Now, just a few weeks ago, I completely took this apart. Well, kind of. I took this apart and I pulled out the air filter, and then I cleaned the mass airflow sensor with it in the housing. Now, I'm not sure Now, I've never noticed this on any other of my air filters or air intakes on any vehicle, but these are factory holes. So I don't know if they're supposed to be plugged up or not. But then there's also a little one here that looks like a rub through. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to cause any issues per se. because this little tiny spot hole here would be where it sits on the fan shroud, I guess. Even though you wouldn't think it would move that much, but who knows. Now, I cleaned all this up, sprayed some black plastic stuff on this to make it look nice and new again. I don't know, because on the inside, that little hole, I don't know, it looks kind of weird, like it had something attached, I don't know. Now this new air filter, there was a video on this that I found on this here. Clogged, missing, or poor fitting or dirty air filter, which this is a brand new one, and it's a Ford Motocraft. I do believe. Now, of course, wiring issues such as a short circuit or corroded defective connectors, you know, that it's still a possibility. It could be something along those lines. I'm hoping not, because I really can't. My home, I live in this, and I gotta go to work, and I hate the idea of having to rely on other people. Oh, I'm starting to have anxiety. I never had this issue before, but boy, am I really starting to have it now. I just want this thing fixed and running properly. So now, of course, it says that the code is generally difficult to diagnose because it's triggering may be related to a wide range of symptoms. Most common, poor engine performance, fuel efficiency, which, see, this all plays together for me because in the time that I've had this van, it started running rich. I could smell that it was running rich out the exhaust. My fuel mileage has dropped a little bit. It wasn't difficult to start, but it would do that stall thing every now and then. When I'd start it, it would start up and stall. I mean, it's a full-size van with a 4.6 liter V8, so hesitation when accelerating, I really don't consider it hesitation. It's the smallest V8 pulling around an E250, 3/4 ton van. Now, presence of other mass airflow or throttle actuator trouble codes, which I didn't have any codes for that. Vehicle stuck in limp mode, it would go into limp mode, and then I'd have to shut it off to reset it. Now, I know technically it would be really nice if I had the extra $600 to buy that nice fancy scanner. Then I know I could change out the ECM myself. ECM's $600. The scanner, because when you replace the ECM, this van does not have the PAT system because the key does not have a chip in it. It's just a regular plain old key. But when you change the ECM, it's going to think that there's a PAT system, and it will throw on the security lock light on the dash that's on the cluster. And I will need that $600 scanner, or even a more expensive one like the garages probably have from Snap-on and whatnot. That is going to require that, because that is the only way that you can tell the ECM, we don't have PATs, it's okay, let the vehicle start. And I don't have an extra, I mean, well, I don't have the money, period, but I'm broke. That's why I'm living van life, trying to get out of this financial hole. Oh, good God. I'm sorry. Oh, you know, it's tough when you're forced into van life, or you come to the conclusion that van life's your only way out, but I love it so much I wouldn't give it up for the world. But when you have to get into it because of financial and other hardships that are out of your control, it makes it very nerve-wracking when you're trying to get out of that financial hole and something's going to happen like this. And I gotta hope that it doesn't totally take a crap, because if it does, I'm done. I don't have the $600 right now. I just acquired a job to paint a garage for a friend of mine and her mother. That money will definitely go towards this. But $600 for the ECM, another $600 for a scanner, which I don't even know if that scanner would do what I need to do. I've seen a couple videos where the guys have the big red scanner. I think that's the Snap-on. I'm not sure what brand it is, but the guy watched the video, and the guy had to do that with a Ford E250 that had the same key as my van does. It was the exact same, except it was the 5.4 motor instead of the 4.6. That was the only difference, and it's a truck versus van. So the series of the vehicle and the motor size, only differences. So I need a drink. Oh goodness. So, of course, as of yesterday, I was thinking, my mindset was that it's the ECM, which, I mean, here's the real kicker, folks. Right there's the ECM. There's a nut on a bolt there and one at the bottom, which is actually quite easy to get to. 3 plugs. I do believe on this van, that right there is the ECM PCM. That's so easy. It's so easy, I could change it. But I don't have that fancy, expensive scanner. So, since I don't have the scanner, I'm stuck, and I don't know anybody that does, that has the big fancy dancy one. I am going to have to rely on a garage to rape my wallet and my ass and my arse to do the work, because I'm going to need them to do their little magic at the end with their scanner. But then, because this comes up, when I having it scan and having this code, and having it say to reinstall the air duct, which, okay, I haven't had this code until now, after I took everything apart, replaced the air filter, which I replaced the air filter on this thing right after I bought it. I never had this code. But I did this last time. I cleaned the mass airflow sensor. I cleaned I did the best I could without, I pulled that hose. I pulled this hose off the intake. The flapper is in there. Forgive my lack of all the terminology. As I get older, I forget things. It was all built up with carbon and crap. I sprayed it. I watched some I did a little research on ways to do it, and everybody just said hold the flap open, spray it in there, it cleans it. And then when I fired up the van, it ran like total doo-doos for a few seconds. I revved the engine, and it spit out all that stuff, went through the engine. And of course, because it's on this side, it kind of like, it washed through, and the stuff that came out the tailpipe was really nasty looking. But after that, when I start the van, it would idle right up, and it was running much better. And then now out of the blue, it's not wanting to run right, and I don't understand. And then, of course, the code that's thrown. Now, I'm going to take this off and actually inspect all these rubber sections and make sure there's no cracks and whatnot, because that's what the guy at the parts, when I did the scan, he said, do you have any cracks or anything like that? I said, I don't know. I didn't see any when I had it off originally. So I'm going to take this back off and check it. And then I'm going to hope that when I put it back together, and maybe I'll disconnect the battery for 15 minutes. Reset everything. See what happens. I don't know if I should do that or not, or wait till I go to the garage, because not like today, because this morning started the van, started fine, drove here to my friend's house to go to give her mom an estimate on the painting the outside of this garage that I'm parked in currently. And now I'm working on this, but I drove over here, no problems. Now I noticed after last evening, when it would go into limp mode, it was when I was really trying to accelerate or up a hill and it had to kick down. So today, last night, after the last time it went into limp mode and I shut it off, restarted it, I babied it and tried to not let it go over 2,000 RPMs, and it made it to where I stayed last night. And then today I drove from there to here, and I had no issues. It ran fine. It didn't go into limp mode. But then when I pulled in the driveway here, I couldn't get into the garage yet, so I had where I parked. Well, now when I went to start it, to pull it up to the garage and come in here, it started installed. Now that could be that code there, or see, I'm just wondering. I wonder if that air filter. I don't know. No, because that air filter's been in for a couple weeks and everything was fine and running great. And I cleaned, like I said, I cleaned the MAF airflow sensor, cleaned the intake. I really hate all this electronic stuff. I miss the days when this was just manual, carburetor, intake, airflow, a distributor that gave you your juice for the spark plugs, and the firing sequence, all that stuff, off the distributor, off the motor. That was great. Those were the good old days. I miss those days. Anybody else miss those days? Anybody else out there in YouTube land, van life land? You miss the days when you could work on it without a computer? I do. I actually enjoyed working on my vehicles back then. But now, like I said, I'm pretty sure that, I'd bet money that's the ECM right there. ECU, ECM, whatever that. It's amazing how does one part have so many different names? ECM, ECU, I've seen PCM. It's the, I mean, it's all different parts, but they're all in the same thing. The same thing. It's the brain. That's really all you gotta. Why don't we just call it the brain? The brain of the car. Well, the brain of the car is right there. I could get to that. I could unplug those plugs. I could unbolt that. I could pull it out. I could, I could go. If I had the part ordered from AutoZone and I got it, I could put in the new one and plug it all back in, and yet I can't just start the vehicle and go, because 9 out of 10 times it's going to require the scanner to go into the computer, do that 10-minute upload like that guys did over that truck, for the Ford truck. And then you have to you're telling the ECM that there's no PATS system. There's no PATS on this vehicle. I'll let it start. And for that, it's a $600 to $1,000, $2,000 scanner, depending on where you buy it, what name brand. That's nuts. And then if I go to a dealership, I mean, I did read one thing that said something about the computer could use the update, but it's an '08. Are they even updating? Do they even have any updates for an '08 4.6 liter Ford E250 brain? Is there an update? Is there any more? Is there anything that this thing hasn't had, in its first couple years? I don't know. I mean, and they stopped making the 40D series, so normally when they stop making it, they only continue to do, that kind of stuff for a couple years and then let it go to the wayside. So what's the chance that there's even, could just an update fix that? I don't know. But if you go to a dealership to get that done, well, how many hundreds and thousands, is it going to cost what, $1,000, $500, and then not be the fix? And their diagnostic rate and their labor rate's $100 and some an hour? I understand people need to make money, but I don't know. I think the old days of, a garage is $30 an hour seems pretty good for a mechanic, for the knowledge you can do, and making $30 an hour just seems like a pretty decent pay, even 40 or 50, $50 an hour, no problem. But over $100, the dealerships are just raping the public. And I can't afford that. I don't have the money. So I'm going to have to pick a local garage, smaller garage. Hopefully, one that's not going to stick it to me good. And I'm going to hope that was showing them the code that it threw to see if, I asked it, I'm going to go to the same garage I had this thing inspected at. And I asked them about its issue with it starting and stalling before, and they were like, it could be a lot of things. And then I mentioned the fuel pump driver, and that I, looked up the stuff, and, Ford forums were saying that it's the fuel pump driver, and they're like, yeah, it could be that. That's one of the possibles. And I'm like, okay. Turns out, I guess it wasn't the fuel pump driver, even though it, I don't know. But it's new. Now I got a new one of them. So yeah, I don't know. If anybody's got any ideas, anybody out there in van life world that's got an E-Series, if you've had this issue, my van's got Motor Van Lease has got 168,000 miles on her. She was a work van before I got her. I don't know how well she was maintained or upkept. I know, like I said, there's a lot of things I want to have replaced on this thing, just so that I know, hoses. I got another belt in case the belt ever goes, but the belt looks good. I checked that out when I was doing the alternator. I did the tensioner pulley. I would like to get this thing, put a new water pump on her, fuel pressure sensor, plugs, coil packs, thinking, I wonder if I should actually take the throttle body. I might see about taking the throttle body all the way off and give it a really good cleaning today. But because this that I found online with this code, since it mentions mass airflow sensor, that's a $70 part at AutoZone. And they have them in stock. So when my friend and her mom get back, if she'd let me borrow her car, I could always go get the mass airflow sensor. See about replacing it. I gotta figure out how to get this one out. There it is. That's the mass airflow sensor. Now, I sprayed that with mass airflow sensor cleaner real good, and hell, it looked just about as clean as this when I sprayed it. There was just a little bit of dirt in there, but nothing that seemed like it would have been out of the ordinary. But I'm wondering if I should replace that first and see what happens. Then again, I'm just throwing money I don't have. Oh, goodness. Yep, throwing money I don't have. Oh, goodness. I don't know. Tired of being broke. Tired of being broke, tired of waiting. Tired of a lot of stuff. I don't know. It's times like this I miss my dad. Pop always seemed to have my back when I had car trouble. He's the only person I didn't mind asking for help from. Yeah, I'm gonna go try to work on some of this stuff and see about how to get that mass airflow sensor out of that housing. Figure out if I'm gonna go buy a mass airflow sensor or not. It'd be great if it was just a $70 part causing the issue. That'd be great. But how do I know? I don't.